I want to talk about, if you can think back from all your millionaire interviews, there's a lot of entrepreneurs on this call, Jamie, that want to become millionaires and they're at 6 figures. And something is holding them back from that 7-figure mark. And I'm sure you've helped a lot of clients get through that and double the revenue and all the other things. But a couple questions. One is, what are the most common themes that you've seen, and I'm sure you've got this, from all the millionaires that you're like, wow, that keeps coming up over and over again? And I don't see a lot of 6-figure entrepreneurs doing that. Can you think of those things that you've got? Because you've interviewed some absolute legends.
Totally. So one that came up over and over and over and over again. That's the funny thing. And once you start doing them, you're like, wow, they say the same things. And some of them are cliches. Don't get me wrong. They're cliches that are actually true. So listening to them and actually implementing them, very different than just hearing them over and over again. This one I'm not sure is totally a cliche because it hit me on the head a few times. And well, I'll give you both of them. So one of them is the commitment to the end goal, not writing the goal, not whatever, the no matter what commitment that they're going to get to the end, not the how. I think we as entrepreneurs get way too caught up in the how it's going to happen, but the commitment to no matter what. In addition to that though, the two pieces, the second piece is speed of implementation. So if it takes you 10 times longer to actually do something, it's going to take you 10 times longer to make more money, right? Now, when you have a team, that's an amazing team. That's how you multiply that too, which helps a lot for 7-figure entrepreneurs for sure, because you could have an amazing team. So that way they can really help you with the speed of implementation. But when you're looking at that commitment to the goal and how fast you test, because a lot of this stuff is testing or leveling up what's already working for you, right? Those are the things, and the consistency in that actually makes a difference. And I know that sounds like, okay, I've heard that before, blah, blah, blah. But to give you an example, like one of the guys that I know who's amazing, 7-figure business, went to a conference, implemented it that night. So went, I'm going to go implement this thing right now and test it and come back the next day and see if it worked. Versus, oh, I had a conference, I'm really tired, everything's great. And then we forget about what we learned and we don't implement it for weeks, maybe if at all. Does that make sense?
Huge. And I mean, and a lot of them don't really ask. They're not like, well, should I test this? Is this the perfect thing? They just try it. And if they fail, they do the next thing. Yeah. I've noticed that too, is they're quick at that.
Yes. Yes. It's just data. That doesn't mean anything. It's just data. And I think that's an amazing thing too, especially at the beginning stages. You're like, this roller coaster that is entrepreneurship and picking yourself back up. You do get better at that, but the faster you pick yourself up, the more good days you have, usually the more outcome you have too.
100%. So commitment to the end goal, and a lot of people. So when you say commitment to the end goal, because I really want to get this, because a lot of our calls are try to focus on how to get past that 7-figure mark. So commitment to the end goal is, if things get tough, doesn't matter. If things don't go the same way, they adapt and adjust, doesn't matter. You're saying they're committing to that end goal that they set, regardless of the circumstances, how they feel, what happened, things like that. Correct? Is that kind of what you got from them? That
too. And so imagine you've got a business and you're like doing pretty well, but you keep trying to hit your head against the wall over and over, and you're like, it's not working. That 7-figure goal you're going to have, whether it's this business or a different business, right? Whether this business totally messes up and you have to pick yourself back up, that doesn't totally matter. It's the commitment to the end goal, no matter how you think it's supposed to look. Does that make sense?
100%. And it doesn't really ever look, all the businesses I've started that have succeeded, they never look like how I wanted them to look. There's always different variations and things like that as well. Yeah. So I want to talk about this too. You say in your bio, and obviously a lot of people know you from helping people's businesses grow. Yep. So you say you specialize in created automated systems and doubling your clients' revenue. If you were looking, and I really want to get deep and kind of dive into some businesses, but if you were looking at some of our members' businesses, I know they depend on what industry, but what are some things that you look for, maybe low-hanging fruit that you look for to help them start realizing the potential of their business or start making more money? What are some things you look for?
It's so funny. I call it low-hanging fruit. Like that's sort of, I was about to say low-hanging fruit. I wrote it down right here and you just said it. So I love that. So my whole thing, I work with 6- and 7-figure business owners. And one of the biggest things that I say when we're setting goals is it's easy to double. It sucks to triple. Like you can, but everything gets janky typically, right? Depending on your size right now, but typically. But it's usually not some wham bam new tactic thing that's super crazy awesome that you're adding. It's very simple business systems that need to be leveled up right? To either get you out of it so you can actually be the captain of the ship, or because it's already working, and leveling it up is really important. So whenever I do an initial call with a client, and I've had clients in literally every industry you could ever imagine, like dent removal and timber and plumbing companies, along with online businesses and e-com and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong, but I cut my teeth in a lot of offline, boring as all crap businesses, right? And I know the online side. So a lot of the online entrepreneurs are like, ooh, I need to know the latest and greatest and the coolest tactics. And they get wrapped up in that. Instead of what I like to do with the low-hanging fruit side is look at the numbers, right? How much money are you making? Where's it coming from? A lot of people don't actually look at a lot of the metrics. Unfortunately, even if they have them, we don't really look at them all that much, and try and figure out what is going as best as humanly possible and how you can level that one piece up. Usually, and it's insane to see the aha moments. This is why I love coaching. The aha moments people have, because you're like, why are you doing it like this? Why don't you do it like this? And they're like, right? Genius. Again, you can't see it in your own business very easy, but when somebody comes in and goes, oh, if I were you, we could make way easier money faster by just doing this one thing. And it's usually not, and it's not a get rich quick or anything like that. It's usually not something super sexy. It's either doubling what you're already doing, right? So if you actually have a service business or something like that, you only have so many prospects, you're like, double how you're getting your prospects. Okay, great. Oh, I can just level it up. We can hire another person. We can do whatever those things are to solve that piece. And then, especially for the doubling side, working on the system so you can handle it, because you don't want, I know entrepreneurs care a lot about growth. Don't get me wrong. It's way easier to sell growth than it is to sell systems in any way, shape, or form, right? But what has a tendency to happen is we sell a ton, we're like, yay, and then we don't have anything, and we die on the inside as entrepreneurs because we're like crawled up in a little corner because you can't handle it all, right? On the opposite side, the people that love systems will have their systems all set and not really care about growth and not make any money, right? So there's a delicate balance of how this goes, and that's sort of the piece. So we'll go, okay, what can we do short term that will make it easy to double, or whatever it is that your goal is. Easy, low-hanging fruit type things to look for, right? By looking at the numbers and seeing where the issues are. And secondary is going, okay, if we do get this much business, what does that look like if we do this? I remember one of my business coaches way back when, and I've done this to my clients so many times and they hate me for it. I love it, but I hated it when my coach did it to me. So we were running a program, this was years and years ago, and I was like, okay, well, I want 50 people in the program because it's group and intense and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, what if you doubled it? What would that look like? And I was like, okay, well, we would need another moderator. We would need to do this. We would need to do that. And she's like, oh, okay, so we're not saying we have to do it right now, but that's really not that difficult. Huh, okay, so I can make double the amount of money. And that was the first $100,000 month that I had. I was like, I guess you're right. So doing that to my clients now, again, they're like, I don't want to do it. And then they look at the numbers and go, that's doable. I should at least shoot for that. Because sometimes we actually hold ourselves back as entrepreneurs, knowing what we are capable of because we don't want to get in a jam or we're afraid of getting too busy and you want to cry and crawl in a corner, right? But being able to level up the pieces that are easier to level up, way better than starting a whole new thing. Make sense?
Numbers first is huge. This took me a couple of years to figure out, but I rarely meet millionaires, Jamie, that don't know their numbers. And I mean like check their numbers daily and know exactly the numbers and where they're coming from, what marketing's bringing in what's the best ROI. And it really, that should be one of your action steps right now, guys that are watching. And there's people watching on three different platforms. So everyone that's watching, that's your first thing. Your first action is like, I hope you conceptualize the importance of knowing your numbers, not just every month, but every week, and knowing what marketing is coming in and what's bringing the best ROI, and then doubling down on that. Because what took us from 6 to 7 was this, period. And I have, when we meet, I meet with my team in person once a month, then we talk once a week, but we always have key metrics and key indicators that are important to me and my brand. And now what's cool is when you get to a certain level where things are systemized, we have KPIs that necessarily other people don't really care about, like YouTube subscribers, Instagram, social media stuff that doesn't bring in immediate ROI, but it doesn't matter because we know what metrics bring in revenue. So we can focus on other ones to build the brand too. So this is not just specific things, guys, like revenue. You have to have revenue, but once you build the brand, then you can kind of figure out what KPIs are most important to you, then the operator can handle those as well. So let me ask you this, Jamie, common mistakes. If you had to pinpoint the top 1 or 2 mistakes you see people make when hiring, where you can kind of tell them to avoid that so they have a fresh look at how to hire, what would those be, like biggest mistakes you've seen?
Oh, yes. Okay, so I'm going to give you a link. Well, actually, I'll give you a link at the end. We have a hiring guide. So it's the Millionaires hiring guide, because everybody messes this up, okay? And it's massive, but we have a little checklist that goes through. So one of the things that I see way too much is, I want the person that is most amazing at everything. Okay, so not saying lower your expectations at all. I'm saying you have to be constantly looking for somebody like that. It's not something where you can be like, oh, I put out an Indeed job post and everything's fine. So that's number one. So always having that, looking for somebody potentially to hire, because the people that you want to have on your team probably have a job and they probably love their job. Like, I don't want people that hate their job and quit, right? Because they might quit from me too, right? Depending on how it is. And so that's number one. Number two, though, is once we start getting the hiring process down, I have them run through a project or a test, right? So we can either do a trial, a month trial, something like that, if they don't want to quit the job that they have now and you just want to test them out as a contractor, something like that. But figure out a way to test, because as good as we are at whatever we do in our business, we're not always the best at gauging the way people interact in an interview. As I found. Me too. I'm like, they seem amazing. And then you hire them and you're like, that is not how they seemed at all, right? And I always thought I was a good judge of character, but having them do an actual project or test, that way, and ideally have quite a few people do the same test, you can compare apples to apples. You can really know what that looks like. Give them the same amount of info. I do it very scientific, right? I give them the exact same email. I say, ask whatever questions you want. You can text me. I find out how many times they ask me stuff, that kind of stuff. So that's the second piece. The third piece, though, and this saved my butt a few times. So, and I make my clients do this also, and I almost didn't do this myself, and I am so thankful that I did. Okay, so this is very important. Whenever you're hiring, a lot of the times you'll be like, this person's amazing. I want to hire them right now because they might get another job somewhere, but you don't have any other candidates that are even close to what that is, right? Now, don't get me wrong. If it was referral or something like that, maybe you can weight it differently. But I personally like to have at least 2 candidates that I adore, that I love, before I hire one of them. Because what has a tendency to happen is if all of them are down here and you have one that's here, you're like, they're way better than this. So they must be good, right? But when you have somebody that's comparable, it's like, So just a quick story. Before I hired this right hand, she's been working with me for over a year and a half now-ish. I almost didn't do this. I got a referral from someone. They were great. They helped me with YouTube Live. They were here. We did a project test. I was like, okay, I'm pretty sure I'm going to hire them. And then I was like, shoot, I tell everyone else to have 2 candidates. I can't not do this, right? I have to do what I say. I ended up just posting a job on Indeed because I was like, well, I got to get at least another candidate. That's the fastest way to do it. My right hand now had just posted on Indeed right after. She hasn't even been looking for a job beforehand. She just moved to Austin. And so we ended up getting an interview right away. Hands down, even better. And I think my business would be a completely different spot right now if I hired the other person. All right.
Wow.
Now,
how interesting.
Now you have it.
It all stemmed because you did what you said you were going to do, which magical things always happen when you follow through on your word and when you lead by example. I love that.